Hi, everyone. Okay, so we'll get started with a small group, and I do actually have some specific questions about the Africa brief we sent out last week that I think might be better to do in a small group anyway and get your feedback on how to make it most useful. So I think it actually will work in our favor to start small. I'm just going to share the screen so I can show you what I had in mind for today. Oh, here we go. We have somebody else joining. Oh my gosh. Mohga's early. That's not what I expected. She was supposed to join us in an hour. Mohga? Oh, okay. So now people are joining. Hi, Mohga. Can you hear us? And then I see Onesimus is here.
Yes, I lost the Zoom of my other meeting, so I can't join.
Oh my goodness! So their loss is our gain.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe we'll start. Maybe we'll just shift things around.
No. Keep as you were. That's fine.
Okay.
I'll be just a fly on your wall at the moment.
Excellent. Onesimus, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, and I see Onesimus is here. Onesimus, I hope you can hear us. Since we're already a few minutes late, we're just going to get started. I think most people here know each other, but actually maybe for Mohga's benefit, since Mohga has joined us today, maybe we can do a very, very quick round of just, you know, which organization you're from and where you're based, just so Mohga knows who she's speaking with. Marlies, I'll start with you. You're first on my screen.
My name is Marlies. I am from the Health Justice Initiative, currently speaking to you from Cape Town.
Thanks, Marlies. Vasi, you're next on my screen.
Hi, I'm Vasi Naidu from KZN, Durban, South Africa. I'm on the People's Action Vaccine Campaign that's part of the Active Citizens Movement. And and also representing myself privately, but we are with Yusuf Bauda and also I think it's Levi. We're all on that same group. And Dr. Narayan, I think you'll know him. Masam, he may have contacted you recently about the youth movement.
Yes,
so
yes.
So he's also Kapil. He's also part of the group that we in SA.
Excellent. Thank you. Suhail, you're next on my screen.
Hi, everyone. My name is Suhail, and I am the campaign.
Oh, I've just lost you. I lost you at campaign. Did everybody else lose Suhail or just me?
No, I can't hear anything.
Okay. Suhail, we seem to have lost you. Oh, okay, you're back. Can you start again, Suhail? Oh, sorry, Suhail, we can't hear you at all. Maybe if you try reconnecting and we'll go to Charles and Suhail will come back to you. Charles, can you intro yourself briefly? I know Charles and Mohga know each other, but go ahead.
Yeah, for everyone else's benefit. Hi, I'm Charles. I'm based at the LSC, working on the African Health Observatory platform, which is mainly around health systems and health policies.
Thank you, Charles. Onesimus.
Hi, everyone. My name is Onesimus Mohga Kalama, the Executive Director of UNASO and coordinating the COVID Champions initiative in East Africa.
Excellent. And now Suhail is back. Suhail, I hope that we can hear each other this time. Go ahead. Oh, poor Suhail, you've been silenced. It's a conspiracy. My goodness. Sorry, Suhail, we can't hear you at all. Oh, now, yes, I can hear a bit. Go ahead.
Sorry, instead of unmuting, I accidentally left the meeting. My name's Suhail, and I'm the current campaign lead for People's Vaccine Kenya, and I'm currently speaking with you all from Nairobi.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So and Mohga, please intro yourself. Oh my gosh, sorry, intro yourself, Mohga.
That's okay. Mohga, I work as a consultant for UNAIDS and co-policy lead for the People's Vaccine Alliance. I've been working on access to medicine, access to healthcare, actually beyond medicine, for decades. Suhail, صباح الخير, أهلا وسهلا.
That's not fair. The rest of us are feeling left out, Mohga.
I just said good morning, welcome, because I just saw the map he's putting, so I assumed he spoke Arabic. Maybe I'm wrong.
Suhail, we'll leave it to you and Mohga in the chat to chat in Arabic if you speak Arabic. But Mohga, we had you scheduled for the end, but I'll go through at least the agenda so you can see what we have planned, and completely fine to have you come in earlier, especially if you will have another call. So we have another, in theory, 75 minutes or so planned for this call. So I will share my screen so you can see what, so people can see what we had planned for today. Can people see my screen? Yeah, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So hold on one second. Actually, let me just do it on slideshow. Slideshow, notes page, slideshow. There you go. All right. So what we had planned for today was, I think we can skip the brief intro to the PVA because everyone here, we don't have any brand new people. I wanted to review last month's meeting report and action items, but that will, I think, be a bit much for you, Mohga. So maybe we'll leave that until the end and let you start.
No, actually, they're calling me now. So carry on as you done at the plan, and I'll join you later. Sorry,
okay,
guys.
great. No problem. So we'll expect you back later. Okay, thanks, Mohga.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. So this is what we had planned for today. I wanted to review last month's meeting report and some of the action items. I know that Buba is not here. There were a couple for him, but hopefully he will join us. He had registered. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Africa COVID-19 brief that we had sent out. This was a request that had come a few months ago that would be useful to have kind of an Africa sum up report about COVID-19. So we made an attempt at that and sent it out. And I just wanted to get people's comments and feedback on what we could add to it to make it more useful. I wanted to go through the week of action, sort of the key achievements, and also other PVA achievements from September, and then get updates from you all. Suhail, I know you, for example, have had a lot of activities going on, and if others have as well. So just updates from across the continent. Anesmus, I know that your COVID-19 champions trainings are ongoing. So any issues, points that we need to advocate around, or things that we can collaborate on. And then I do have some upcoming key dates and advocacy opportunities. I have the PVA global calendar that I wanted to share with you and see if we could add anything to that. And then we can keep Mohga to the end as we had initially planned, and then anything else. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes lots of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So what I'll do is, if I can, without, let's see here. I wanted to just go through, I have last month's report open here. And there were a few action items that I just wanted to go through with people, just to make sure that we're on track. And also it'd be great to hear from you all on whether you think the report format for the meetings is also helpful. What we've tried to do is keep it like super, super brief and link to the transcript that we spend a lot of time on trying to clean up. So I hope that format works for people. So let me know if you would prefer a more detailed report, but the feedback that we got early on is that people prefer sort of a brief report. And if you want more detail, we link to the transcript. So we had an action item here from Marlies to share the relevant links related to the story that Marlies had told us about last time about the Johnson & Johnson and the Aspen breaking news. So Marlies, you did that right away. So thank you so much for that. Here is just a note about the storytelling group, and Buba has actually already recommended somebody, but I just wanted to remind people in this group that the People's Vaccine Alliance is quite keen to amplify voices from the Global South. So I don't know if you all saw the Did everybody see the very short video that was doing the rounds with Lois Chingandu from Frontline AIDS? Has everybody seen that video? Charles, I know you were on the campaigns and media group when that was being discussed. Onesimus, I hope you have seen the video as well, which has been shared by PVA. Yes, okay, I will, and I can share the link around again. But that's that short clip featuring Lois talking about her personal experience with COVID-19 in her family, but also her thoughts as a former HIV advocate now working on COVID. That and the story from the Ugandan healthcare workers at the hospital in northern Uganda. That's an example of the kind of stories that we're trying to amplify. We also had a young Kenyan medical doctor share her story in a British newspaper, sort of her thoughts about booster shots in the UK when people that she was working with in Kenya did not have access to vaccines. So, you know, it's kind of as opportunities come up, you know, we do have that list. I have asked many of you to contribute names to the list of potential media contacts, you know, so for example, we got this request from, I think it was Metro. Charles, does that sound familiar? I think it was Metro was the newspaper that wanted a young medical worker from East Africa. So they reached out to one of the PVA communications people, and we had Marie Claire on the list in Nairobi. So we were able to link her to them and they interviewed her. So we do have this list now that's about 70 people strong and Onesimus, you have contributed so many names, thank you. So people who can be contacted either for media stories or for these types of opportunities where somebody wants a personal account, you know, so around the Olympics, there were also a few people who came forward and gave their testimony for the video that did the rounds around the Olympics that stopped playing games that Project Citizen had done. So Buba has recommended somebody from Action Aid to join this group. Here we did have a suggestion about an open letter to African leaders. And that's part of what Mohga was going to speak to us about. She has some ideas about how to make the advocacy towards African leaders a little bit more effective. I wanted to give Robert a special shout out from Christian Aid because he was super helpful with the Day of Action Against Germany. And I'll be showing some photos from that in our slide deck. Let's see. Oh, in terms of I don't know if you remember, there was a suggestion from Lois to work on a digital memorial wall. So that project is going forward with the storytelling group. I don't really have an update at the moment, but the People's Vaccine Alliance communications person, Christy, who I think you might know, Charles and Onesimus, you might have seen, and Suhail on a few calls. She is doing some research on other digital walls to see what People's Vaccine Alliance could pull together. And the hope is to have that digital memorial wall go live on December 8th. So December 8th will be the 1-year anniversary since the first out of clinical trial Pfizer vaccine in the UK. So that is our hope, and I'll keep you posted on that. And there is I think what we will do first is send around a form that people can fill in with the photograph of the person that they've lost and a short description, and see how people feel about that, with also, of course, very clear notes about what it will be used for, and letting people know that if they no longer want their loved one's photo used, that they can have it pulled at any time. So we're trying to go forward with that. It won't be Africa specific, it'll be global. And the idea is to try and have photos of people who've died since December 8th of last year to December 8th of this year, and have that go live. So I'll keep you posted on that. Here there is this Gender is My Something, the GMAC conference. Buba had reached out and asked them if we could get a slot for PVA Africa, and they have agreed. So I'll keep you posted on that. So I think we're all done on the action items, which is great. I think it's just Mohga is going to go through some points with us on what would make the targeting of African leaders a little bit more effective. Does anybody have any questions, thoughts, concerns, feedback about last month's report? No? Okay. So if not, we will go on to, I hope now, of course, my PowerPoint is not, okay, there you go. All right, so I was hoping, and now this is not working strangely. Can you all see the screenshot of the vaccine rollout here? Can anybody see that?
No. We can just see a white screen.
Yeah, that's so strange. I can also only see a white screen. I don't know why it's doing that. But what I had here was, it's very strange. So if it's not coming through, it will come through in the when I send the slides. But basically what I had done is, this is so frustrating. Yeah, it's not even showing on my own PowerPoint here. But what I had done is just pulled from Our World in Data, the current, and Our World in Data, as I've said, and I'm sure many of you have gone through, is a great source for information about COVID-19 deaths and infections and vaccine rollout as well. But there was just a slide that showed, you know, that 66% of people in the US have been fully vaccinated versus the others in Africa versus the US and world. So I just was going to show us that, but I think all of us can just go directly to Our World in Data. And of course, this is also not being displayed, but they've also started gathering data on booster shots. So you can see there the booster shots have been administered in the US and UK, Germany, other countries that are already reporting those booster shots. So the US to date has already administered 2.5 million booster shots. So that's a story that the PBA is following very closely, kind of this juxtaposition between booster shots in some countries and other countries that, you know, for many people still have not provided or been able to provide even the first vaccine. Please feel free, guys, to chime in at any moment if you have anything to add. Does anybody have anything to add? No? Okay, so I'll go back to slideshow. I'll skip the PBA intro because I think everyone here is aware of that. And for some reason, a lot of the images are not showing up. I just wanted to remind people that if you are a member of the People's Vaccine Alliance, and Suhail, I know that Charles, you are on the Campaigns and Media group. Onesmus and Suhail and Marlies, I know that there's not necessarily one person from HJI who always attends the PVA meetings. Fatima has attended every once in a while, but there is an option for people to join the group. So there is a Campaigns and Media group, and the stories subgroup is associated to that. It's a smaller group just focused on the stories and storytelling. So the documentary or the short video of Lois and the healthcare workers in Uganda came out of that group. The gathering of names, the placing African voices in different media outlets comes out of that Campaigns and Media stories subgroup. There is a policy and advocacy group that is co-led by Mohga. There is an influentials group that really tries to reach out to high-level people. So when you have seen the People's Vaccine Alliance post open letters, you know, targeting Biden with 140 Nobel laureates, you know, signing it, you know, that's the kind of work that the influentials group tries to focus on. So I just wanted to point out for those of you, and I think everyone here today is representing an organization that is actually a member of the People's Vaccine Alliance. So this option is available. You don't have to attend every week or every 2 weeks, but when, you know, a very busy period comes up, like the week of action, there are key things that you as a representative can feed into. Charles, I know you are a member of Campaigns and Media. And Suhail, are you a member? You're a member of the policy group, right, Suhail?
No, I'm just a general member.
Okay. Oh, and Vasi, I forgot you. Vasi, did you ever join the PVA as an individual?
I'm not sure I think I may have done both.
Okay.
Originally it was from the PVA, from the PVC, the People's Vaccine Campaign of Active Citizens Movement. And yeah, I can't remember now, but it was some times back when I actually joined.
Okay. So as I always say, you know, this Africa group is super informal. Anybody can join this group. If your organization or as an individual, if you'd like to join the PVA itself, you know, which then gives you access to the weekly emails that they send out, you know, your organization gets listed on their website. They do then invite you to participate in these subgroups. So that option is there. Does anybody here have any comments on any of the groups? Charles, I guess I'd be pointing to you just because you're the only one, I think, who's an active member of one of the subgroups here in terms of time commitment or anything else that you'd like to say about that?
I'm also a member of the policy and advocacy group. And I think it's every 2 weeks, each meeting. the time commitment is sort of quite light. There's a lot happening in the background, so and it's good to get updates when you go to all those meetings. So it's very useful, yeah, to see how things move forward, particularly around the weeks of action, because there's a lot going on, which is good.
Okay, thank you. So I encourage, any of you who, especially if you have more than one person, available to join a group. I know it's hard with the biweekly calls and the other things that are happening in people's other work, but especially when there is something busy happening, it is great to have input through one of these groups. Tian has just joined us. Hi, Tian.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Maaza.
Hi, we're a small group today. As you can see, Mohga joined for a few minutes and then jumped off and said she'll be back. So I'm just going through the slides. We reviewed the report from last month and the action items. And here I was just reminding people, everybody here is actually a member of the PVA. So just reminding people that they do have the opportunity to join these subgroups as well, which does provide good feedback, options during busy periods. Let's see now. So I'm not going to spend time on these strategic priorities because you've all already heard them. I'm just reviewing from last month. I was thinking if there were some new people here today, but I will send out the slides. And of course, what's really frustrating is now, oh my gosh, this is so frustrating. I wanted to show you all the photos from last month, but very frustratingly, yeah, my fancy screenshots are not showing, which is so obnoxious, but I will send out the slides so you can all see. But there were some highlights from last. I wonder if there's another view option, maybe presenter view. Let me see if no, it's still not showing them. Yeah. Can anybody see the photos?
No.
Yeah, it's very bizarre. It only shows them in this format. So I'll send this around, but basically, last month was quite busy for the People's Vaccine Alliance. There was Germany was being targeted because, as we've talked about, Angela Merkel is a key blocker of the TRIPS waiver. And so there was a lot of action targeting Germany specifically, given that the election in Germany happened over the weekend, and the hope of the PVA was to target the new incoming government officials. So the person who would replace her as chancellor and the others who would be involved in a coalition government. So letters were sent out to the three of those people, quoting, a bunch of Nobel laureates and former heads of state. Apparently the head of the Green Party did write back to the People's Vaccine Alliance and said that she would support the TRIPS waiver. The others did not respond, but the hope, I think, is that since Germany is a coalition government, that having at least one party that supports the TRIPS waiver will help push that through. I'd also posted, yeah?
Sorry, Maaza, could I suggest that you drag your left column? If you just drag it to the right, I think it will enlarge those, and then I think we would be able to see the pictures if you have the option of dragging. No, you don't. Sorry. Your pictures look lovely. We'll check them out when you send us the file.
Yeah, it's so frustrating. I don't know why it's doing this. Yeah, and this is not showing either. Yeah. So what I've also done then is included just the screenshots of the headlines from the various press releases. There was a letter to world leaders as well from People's Vaccine Alliance. Suhail, I saw that your PVA Kenya was part of that. But about vaccine inequity ahead of Biden's summit. So I've included screenshots. Oop, I think we lost Vasi and now Vasi is back. Welcome back, Vasi. So yeah, so you'll see that there. And I've also included the links in the presentation so you can see the various press releases about, again, pre the Biden summit and talking about the profits that are being made from COVID-19 vaccines. Then I had included, there were some great photos, which you'll see if you haven't seen them then already, from the various actions during the day of action targeting Germany. And again, thank you to everybody who was involved in that. We had talked about this briefly last time. And obviously some people in the group were concerned about trying to organize a large protest or action during COVID times and just the security issues around that. So what we were encouraged to do was really try and organize as small and high impact in terms of photo events as possible. So in Nairobi, Suhail, you were I don't think you were actually, I didn't see you in any of these photos, but I know that Fight Inequality, as well as Christian Aid, and this is perfect timing. I see Robert is here. So Robert can actually brief us on how it was for them to organize this at short notice in Nairobi. Robert, can you hear us? Robert, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Hi, Robert. You're going to live a long life, because I was just talking about the action in Kenya and I was trying to show photos, but my screen was acting a bit strange. So it would be great if you could let us know actually what it was like. I was just reminding people that we had spoken about this last month, and there was a little bit of hesitance about trying to organize a big event on September 14th. And the feedback that we got from PBA was to just do something very small. You know, they organized those flags, the German flag that said, 10,000 dead a day because of inaction. So we printed the flags, printed some placards, and in Pretoria, there was a group of people who got together at the union buildings, and then in Nairobi, Robert was able to collaborate with groups there to do a few actions. So Robert, can you just walk us through that process, what it was like, what was challenging, what worked, and what you would do differently for an upcoming action for another day?
Sure. So thanks a lot, Maaza, for giving me the opportunity. I'm sorry that I joined late. So just a calendar mix-up. But it was quite interesting because we had quite a short lead time into organizing the events. And I remember just trying to mobilize people within about 3 or 4 days, 2 of which were the weekend, but we managed to get Action Aid involved, Fight Inequality Alliance involved, Christian Aid was part of that, and Amnesty Kenya, and a few individuals, including Activista. So the idea was just to have, because we couldn't converge due to COVID protocols, we had to keep the numbers small, which meant that we were also complying with the state regulations. Now, what we did is we decided to target 3 key outlets. So the first one was the Goethe Institute, which is like the German Cultural Center. And then we also targeted the German embassy in Kenya. And then we also targeted a key installation that would demonstrate that, look, this is Kenya, which was the Kenyatta International Conference Center. And then what we wanted to do is we had about 8 individuals at each of those key installations, and then we converged at Freedom Corner, which is part of the Huru Park in Nairobi. Yes, now that is the Kenyatta International Conference Center. That's outside the German embassy. Yeah, so the idea was just to make sure, so you can clearly see the KICC building. It's quite evident that that's Kenya. We decided to do 2 other things. So the protests or just the flags and the key installations were part of it, but the main idea was to drive the agenda online. So the 10,000 deaths was part of the messaging that we were pushing, targeting and tagging the German government and some of the leaders that were coming up for election. But we wanted to make sure that we do a social media campaign. So we did a social media flash sort of storm for about an hour. And we managed to make an impression on about 1.9 million people. And also we managed to, I think, get to number 5 trending in Kenya on that day. So this is outside the Goethe Institute. Yeah, those are just some of the pictures. Quite interesting in terms of just being able to organize this in a fairly short amount of time. But what worked well was basically getting individuals that were committed to the cause. It was important for us to have youth as part of the conversation. We also managed to get a couple of national CSOs and a few activists who were, protesting, and managed also to push out the messages. one thing that we also did is work with social media influencers who were in a position to push out some of the messaging for the campaign. And I think that also worked well. So it's not just about tagging or using our own communications teams, but we also managed to work with outside influencers who are keen on social justice matters. I think those pictures are yours, Maaza. This one's
yes.
Mandela Square, right?
yeah, the Union Building. Sorry. So they weren't showing up on my slide. So as you're talking, I hope everybody can see. I just wanted to get some of the photos that were taken so you could get a sense. Yeah, so these now are the Union Buildings in Pretoria.
Okay, so maybe just to wrap up, what would I do differently? I think I'd have a bit more lead time on the actual organization. I realized that there was quite a bit. We had, I think, about a 48% positivity rate on engagement with the content, which is quite high, showing that people actually care about the issue. But then we also had about 40% neutral, which meant that there were certain groups of people who didn't identify with the conversation. And I think that's a part of a larger group of people that we can actually target to, make them engage more with the conversations, because it looked like people were just not aware of what was going on. And especially when you're trying to say, look, the reason you don't have vaccines is because, one of this global giants is sort of is stonewalling, especially when you think about BioNTech's, for example, how much they have revised their revenue in this year alone. I think it's now up to about 15 billion euros just on the vaccine. Yeah, thanks. Are there any questions maybe I can take, or is there something you want me to respond to specifically?
I mean, I do. First of all, thank you so much, Robert, for doing that. I know that it ended up being, it shouldn't have been short notice because, we knew that this day was coming up, but I think there had been quite a bit of hesitation, about trying to organize an event, as I said. And so finally, when we got the ask or the go ahead to just make it as small, even if it's just 10 people, absolutely fine, just make it a small event, then Robert, really, you kind of got everybody together. So really appreciate that. How did you track this sort of neutral versus positive? Where were you tracking that? I'm just curious about that.
So that was tracked online through the social media engagement, right? So we have one of our partners, Action AID, actually had this analytics tool that allows us to track some of those positive and negative feedback, and then also if it's neutral. So the positive engagement is just based on the content that's put out there and how people react to it. So there's a tool that allows us to do that tracking. Yeah.
Huh. So, and you can track that on the Twitter posts? We
can.
Interesting. All right. Am I the only person who has never used this? Does it have all, like HJI or others? Suhail, are you all using this as well? This kind of like positive neutral to posts?
No, actually, I'm actually also learning about it for the first time.
Yeah, us neither.
Wow. So Robert, we might need you to, Tian, are you aware of this? I'm feeling very like an auntie here who doesn't know about what people are doing on social media. Tian, maybe Tian is multitasking. Yeah, because that's something that I think we'd also be curious about using. Robert, do you have kind of a link? I mean, we can obviously do our own research as well, but if there's somebody who's helping you, can you give us the group some information on this tool?
Yeah, sure. So I can get us in touch with Tyson Majani. He's the guy from Action AID that's copied into the emails who was able to set that up for us.
Okay, that would be great. All right. And so
I know that
Sorry?
Twitter tends to have a free analytics tool, but the ones which sometimes are more in depth when you're trying to track, specific details, everything from which country, blah, blah, blah. There are certain software that you have to pay for. So I will ask him to tell me which software, and then I can try and get him to just do a brief or something about which tools they use on their analytics. But there is a free component on Twitter itself.
That's great. Okay, and I think the reason why it's so interesting, as everybody can see, is that these are very small. I think we had in Pretoria, no more than 15 people. So the idea, as Robert said, is really to try and get more of the social media traction and hopefully, use these photos. Obviously, if Germany changes the way that they're acting, some of the German flag photos we might not be able to reuse, but we did try and take photos of the individuals with the banners as well. So, we could sort of generate more use from the photos going forward, but there was quite a bit of social media action around the day of action, because it wasn't just in Nairobi and in Pretoria. As you saw on the slides, we also had people doing similar, and I'm again, sorry about this, it's not turning up, but we had similar, much smaller, but also in Sydney, Australia. There was a great photo in Rio at the kind of the big Christ the Redeemer statue. And so the idea was to get social media trending all over the world with that. Any questions for Robert from the group? No. Okay. Well, thank you again, Robert. I really appreciate you pulling all of that together. And yes, please, if we could have, if you could chat to Tyson, and if he could even come, to the next meeting and brief people about how to do this, what we can do with a free, the free option, and if he is aware of what is doable with a paid option as well. I think that would be super interesting for people to know. One thing that I wanted to say is that the People's Vaccine Alliance did set aside a small amount of money for this activity. And it was kind of an ad hoc, let us know, how much do you think this is going to cost? But going forward, and I think everybody on this group is a member of the People's Vaccine Alliance. I know, Basi, in your case, it's not clear if you're on as an individual or part of your broader group, but the PVA has received interest from private foundations in funding the work of the Alliance. So, and Valentina has been updating people about this at the bi-weekly meetings. That funding will hopefully allow for more consistent support of various campaigns. And I think the hope of the PVA is that, for these things like days of action, there would be funds set aside, but then there would also be opportunities for groups that are members of the PVA to apply for funds for, other campaigns that maybe are not part of the global activities, but that you think that in Kenya or in Tanzania or elsewhere, would be necessary. So I just want people to know that for this activity, there was a small pot of funding available, and that's what paid for things like the banners, the flags, the transportation, that sort of thing. But we really hope to have more consistent funding in the future. Any questions? Okay, thanks again. And I will be sending these out so you can see, as I said on this slide, in the highlights, you'll also see the press releases and the various articles that went out in September. So we have about 15 more minutes before Mohga hopefully comes back. But I just wanted to talk about, well, I guess before we talk about key upcoming dates, it would be good to hear from you all. I know, Suhail, you in particular have had a lot of activities going on in the last couple of weeks, but aside, so Suhail, please, we'll give you the floor, but does anybody else have activities that they've worked on in the last month or issues that they think need to be addressed that we can brainstorm on together? Keeping in mind that the targeting African leaders, we will discuss with Mohga when she comes back in about 15 minutes.
Great. Thank you, Maaza. I'll just put my camera on for the sake of putting a face behind the name. So for the past few weeks, I would say we've been having very active social media acquaintances. I would say we've been having very active engagements in terms of comments and likes. And I feel like it's interesting how we were tracking our advocacy mechanism through that. But other than that, and having everyone keeps on mentioning, whenever I mention People's Vaccine Kenya, everyone's like, wow, you have such a good social media presence. So I thought I'd mention that in terms of campaigning and advocacy. But other than that, in terms of policy and influence, we've been working a lot in trailing and tracking what's been happening at the United Nations General Assembly. We've been focusing on the discussion of not just the TRIPS waiver, but the larger question of where are the vaccines. So we've been trying to get the Kenyan diplomats in specific to ask this question. And we wanted to launch a campaign of no vaccines, no bilateral agreements, but we were told that's going to be a very simplistic campaign in terms of policy and the global policy play in the world, and it would leave countries like Kenya to disadvantage. So what we did is we started the phrase, where are the vaccines? And we saw that catching up, and that's what we used all through. And I think this week, today or tomorrow, there's going to be a Kenyan meeting discussing the deliberations made at the United Nations General Assembly. So that's what we want to focus on now and see where countries like Kenya and the larger African continent have made progress in asking for the vaccines and not just donations. Other than that, we've been following up with the World Trade Organization because we found out Dr. Ngozi is actually an easy target, and she's spoken about vaccine access just recently during the Biden summit. And we use that and the letter we had put out. We've started using the letter again in bits, posting excerpts and sharing excerpts with her office, which has been very open to discussion. So we're hoping to have her soon, if everything goes well, have a solidarity statement put out soon with the African people's vaccine demands. Other than that, we've been following through with the TRIPS waiver, especially from an Africa-focused perspective and the larger global South. So we've been focusing on how countries are relating to the TRIPS waiver. And one of the key activities, especially the social media campaign targeting France and Merkel was actually very important. France and Germany was very important because it made people understand what the TRIPS waiver is. So even if it didn't make as much traction, it was a good tool of education because more people understood what the TRIPS waiver is. And I've realized there's need for education on the TRIPS waiver because we're just so used to saying it within our policy circles, but a lot of Africans and residents of the global South, citizens of the global South don't understand what this waiver entails. But other than that, we've been doing a lot of conferencing with civil society and a lot of the non-governmental organizations in Kenya, just discussing what a people's vaccine can look like in Kenya, in East Africa, and larger Africa. So that's what we've been doing. And one of the key interests, I think I should just put it out there, we're in the very early stages of planning a very Africa-specific week of action. So I will be in touch with Maaza about that and then loop you all in on the People's Vaccine Africa email list, and we can see how best we can work together to make this happen. And other than that, we've just been working on research and ensuring COVID-19 safety nets and having like an agenda that can be adopted by other African countries in ensuring that other than a vaccine, how can we best take care of the people in these countries? So we've primarily been working with, or rather targeting the World Trade Organization and specific governments, especially the Kenyan government and the Tanzanian government, because we've been trying to expand our work to East Africa. And I think in a few weeks, we'll also be targeting North Africa in terms of aiding in policy, because a few people had reached out in terms of that. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's what we've been doing.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much, Suhail. So two things that I would like to, just make sure that I got clear is one, definitely, if you have in mind to develop a kind of an Africa week of action, I think, you and all of us would get much more traction if we can do that as a group and, with the People's Vaccine Alliance, because they have a lot of energy behind them at the moment. So please, do you have a sense of a kind of a month that you're targeting for that?
We were thinking, we've just had like 2 discussions. I was supposed to send you an email earlier, but I forgot. Mm-hmm. But we've been thinking of the first week of November, because I feel like November marks a very prior, I feel like it's an interesting time because we can say we're close to 2 years of the pandemic. Nothing has been happening. People are still dying. There's vaccines. So I think just right before Thanksgiving and Christmas. So I feel like November, the first 2 weeks of November are really crucial, even in terms of policy, because I think COP26 will be happening at that time. There'll be I think World Bank meetings. There's quite a lot of policy sessions at that time. So I feel like November was one of our targets. And I think working with what you had said earlier, having a grieving wall, or what had you termed it?
The memorial wall, yeah.
The memorial wall, I think, will come at the perfect time because it comes just before Thanksgiving and just before Christmas. So also targeting these holidays and just before people go on leave and vacation with their families. So we thought of October, there's too much happening, but November is quite the right time. So I will make a write-up and then I will send it to you and you can share it with the larger Africa group, and we can also share it with the Alliance.
Okay, that would be great. And I do think that, as Robert has mentioned, these things always feel a little bit more rushed than you would expect. And I would think, and again, obviously would love to hear from the group, but I think that if we do get that memorial wall, reach our target and have it be launched on December 8th, I wonder if people think that that would be a good, having a lead up. And we can definitely, the way that Christy is hoping the wall, and Christy's the person who runs kind of social media campaigns of the People's Vaccine Alliance and has taken the lead to try and, talk to people. There are a few memorial walls that have been set up around the world. There's a national one in India. There's one in the UK. There are a few in the US. There's not a global one yet that I have seen, but she's been reaching out to some of those people to find out, first of all, what the cost is, what kind of technical support is provided, and whether we can, within the wall, have sub walls that are sort of the Africa, Asia, Latin America, et cetera. So I think my sense is that December 8th is an important date, that I've been trying to, I actually looked at the PVA calendar today and it's not there. So I was about to add it that year, it's 1 year since there was all that fanfare. I don't know if you all remember that nice grandma that was wheeled out at some hospital in the UK and she received the first non-clinical trial Pfizer shot. And there was so much emotion around that. And here we are a year later with these dismal numbers. So my sense is that if you are willing to consider, Suhail, that might be a good thing. So I don't know what people think. I mean, I definitely think having an Africa-focused week of action is a great idea, Suhail. So I don't know if other people have any thoughts on that, and if you have thoughts on dates as well as Suhail goes back and talks to the people he's been working with on this. Everybody's, yep, Robert?
Yeah, let me come in. I honestly think it's a great idea. And maybe I can just pivot off of something that we're doing at Christian Aid as well. We are about to roll out a campaign on vaccines, and we are looking for partners as well. But we will be targeting Sierra Leone, Kenya, Burundi, and Zim in this action. And some of the key things that we're trying to do is, one, just have a public-facing campaign. So we might have some resources that we want to allocate towards the People's Vaccine Alliance so that we can actually push forward some of this work, and especially a week of action. There is this conversation that's happening in Ghana the first week of December around the Kusi Ideas Festival, and it's, I think, spearheaded by a Nation Media Group. And I have been in touch with them, and they might have about 6 presidents on there, as well as a couple of corporate civil society. So the idea was maybe to try and get a panel discussion during that time. So if it could be something around that time, we could try and get it focused during that Kusi Ideas.
Okay. And when is the Kusi Ideas Festival again, Robert? What is that date?
I think it's from the 2nd to the 4th of December. But
okay.
I can confirm. I'll send you the details. I just received it as well. So I'll just forward it on to you, Maaza, and then maybe you can share with the group.
Okay. That would be great. And I see a note from Charles here as well. Africa Week of Action is a good idea. Perhaps can also look to coincide with a letter to African leaders. Yes, so maybe we can mention that to Mohga as well. And I do think, Suhail, I really like the idea of having it be as a build up to kind of the holiday season. And I think, my one concern about the mentioning Thanksgiving is that it's such a US focused event, whereas once you get into December, not only do you have that December 8th date, but then Christmas is something that more people tend to to think about, unless we are thinking, specifically focusing on, the US voters and something related to Biden. So Tian has rejoined us incognito as Anna. Hello, Tian.
Hello, Maaza. It's so weird. Hello, everyone again. Sorry, I'm having internet issues. Please go ahead.
Okay, so Tian, Suhail was just briefing us on all the stuff that PV has been doing in Kenya, and Suhail brought up the idea of organizing an African week of action. So we're just talking about when would be good to do that. Suhail had mentioned maybe November, around leading up to the US Thanksgiving, and Robert and I were talking about maybe thinking more about December, with that December 8th anniversary of the first non-clinical trial Pfizer vaccine. Robert was also telling us about a Kusi Ideas Festival going on in Ghana the first week of December with some African leaders. So that's just what we were sort of thinking about. Suhail, we don't want to derail your plans, because it seems like you've already started some planning with people in Kenya on this, but I do think it would be great if, we'd have a lot more impact if we could collaborate on this together. And, if your group would be willing to push a little bit to December, I think that might be worthwhile.
Yeah, as of now, it's very internal. We're just trying to put logistics together, who to reach out to, what time would be great. And I think the reason we thought of November was because after November 20th, everyone starts going on holiday and vacation. So not many people want to be in front of a screen or rather at the beach and then watching Zoom rallies. So that's one of the key things we realized, because the holidays start and December becomes quite hectic to gather people to focus on certain themes, especially with everything that's happening. I know the vaccine is in mainstream discourse and it's a very serious issue that people will be interested in, but I'm just looking at the issue of people leaving work and also targeting people who'd be tentative speakers, tentative panels, tentative workshops. I think December is going to be very difficult to also just loop in panels. But I don't know, I think we can collectively think about it and we can share ideas again soon, even if it's through the WhatsApp group, and specific dates, why we think those dates are much more tentative as compared to others. And we can just start working around it. I don't think it's too far away, and I don't think December is a bad idea either, but I think we can just look at when we can target the most people. And also, in fact, thinking around targeting corporate entities, sometimes after November 20th, most of them just go and leave on a rolling basis and don't come back until January.
Okay.
But that's just that was just our main thought process on targeting November, especially the first 2 weeks of November.
Okay, great. Thank you, Suhail. And then on the Ngozi issue as well, can you just say, so you've already reached out to her office and you've already had positive interaction with her? Is that what you said?
Yeah, so earlier, I think it was in March or July, I think July, we sent out, immediately she became Director General, we sent out an open letter congratulating her and asking her to support the people's vaccine, especially in the global south, and her office responded. And since then, she's been actively sharing snippets, especially at the Biden summit. We're happy to see some of the things that we mentioned in the letter are things that she said in person and that were posted on the website and the speech that she gave. So we have been trying to get her to share a solidarity statement. And I think this is when we can loop in the influentials group, both in Africa and from the Alliance, to just see if we put enough pressure on her, maybe she can put out a tweet and just like hashtag people's vaccine. And that's going to be a really big win for the movement in general. Because as of now, I think her stand is she does support a people's vaccine, but she doesn't have a clear stand on where she is with the TRIPS waiver. So that's our little conflict.
Okay, great. All right, please do keep us posted on that. And if something happens and you think that the influentials group needs to be informed, etc., please let me know. Does anybody else have activities? I know Mohga will be hopefully rejoining us any second, and we can brief her a little bit on what we've discussed, Suhail, and then also think about the open letter to the African leaders. But any other activities from people in the last month? And also, Marlies, maybe you can talk about the planned activities, you know, our joint panels that we're thinking about. But before that, does anybody have any other activities that have taken place in September that they would like to let us know about? Okay, so Marlies, why don't you go ahead?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm just going to say a few words about a webinar that the Health Justice Initiative, together with the African Alliance and the People's Health Movement South Africa, are organizing. It's called the 5% Continent, and it's got three overarching themes. It's greed, divides, and solidarity. And its focus point would be COVID in Africa, but I think much of the conversation will be around the availability of vaccines. So the first webinar slot is on the 14th of October, and that will focus on greed. We'll have a lot of discussion about intellectual property, the TRIPS waiver, the issue about boosters, and some critique of COVAX. And we have two confirmed speakers for that slot. We've got Professor FIFA Rahman, who's part of the ACT Accelerator, and Kamran Abbasi, who's from the British Medical Journal. And we will have two more speakers. The People's Health Movement later in October the 28th will be talking about divides, especially the public-private divide and global south and global north. And then in November, on the 24th, we'll be looking at solidarity. The African Alliance are coordinating those speakers, and it will have a specific focus on equity and regional and continental solidarity, and what are the lessons that we can learn from various countries and how they have approached vaccine equity. So we'll send around some flyers and how you can register for these webinars a bit later on.
Great. Thank you so much, Marlies. And Marlies is amazing. Marlies, you should kind of lead a session actually on how to be organized and keep people on track with everything. So thank you for all you've done to pull the PHM and African Alliance and Health Justice Initiative together on this. And as I've said in the chat here, November 24th, Suhail might be, and for the rest of you as well, we will be reaching out to you for this solidarity webinar that we're planning, as Marlies said, that is Africa focused. So that might be a good opportunity to, Suhail, to maybe think of like some sort of, you know, a kickoff event for a week or a period of action targeting Africa. So just something to think about. And thank you for sharing those links in the chat, Suhail. Anybody else have either activities that they have held in September or things coming up in the next month that they would like to brief us on? No. Okay. So while we're all here, I just want to take advantage to share the PVA calendar. Hold on one second. Let me just get it up. Oh, and actually, you know what? As Suhail was talking, I was reminded of from the letter, and I'm just going to share this. Actually, it's probably important to share this. So, Suhail, you've reminded me that the People's Vaccine Alliance is quite keen to avoid focusing on just the TRIPS waiver, and this is something that Mohga has been screaming about for a while. So I don't know if you all can see this, and I will send this out in a more organized fashion. But the letter that the People's Vaccine Alliance, and Suhail, I believe this was a letter that your group had signed as well, had sent out to leaders as a lead up to the Biden summit, suggests these 5 key points. You know, reallocating vaccines is one of the key points for sure. And that is really partially because there's been so much press about this, you know, donation of vaccine, but very few of them have actually come. The last I checked, it was not even 1/5 of the committed vaccines had actually been delivered. So, you know, the ones that have been committed need to be delivered. So that is point 5 of the 5. But in terms of the others, you'll see here committing to the WHO's plan, which in theory was 40% of the world's population vaccinated by the end of the year and 70% by the middle of last year. the technology and the know-how is number 2. And that, I think, in October, and this goes well, Marlies, with the GREED webinar in October, the People's Vaccine Alliance is hoping to really focus on shaming pharma. And I know I have heard Fifa Rahman speak once before, and she's amazing and really good on that. So that is kind of the second point. Number 3 is the TRIPS waiver. So then supporting the TRIPS waiver is number 3. And number 4 is investing in public funding to increase vaccine R&D and manufacturing capacity. So, you know, the issues that we've seen also got a lot of press about the mRNA hubs, et cetera, and supporting those. Does anybody have any questions about these points or any concerns, things that you wish were here and were highlighted?
Sorry, Maaza, I don't know if you had spoken about this, but initially I think there was a document Tian was working on Africa focused. I don't remember the title of the document, but I feel like it would be important. And maybe just going forward, would it be necessary if we could have maybe a very Africa focused, detailed, similarly to this detailed demands with justifiable information on why this is more solid as compared to what's being given to us now?
Yes, and that's actually a great idea. And thank you for reminding us of that. So, sorry, let me stop sharing. Tian, maybe you can brief us on, we had started working on this manifesto, and with everything that has gotten so crazy, it sort of got pushed a little bit to the wayside. Tian, can you brief us on where, and we had also talked about the need to develop an active sort of smaller working group. So kind of an Africa steering group and a writing group. So we had a pretty decent draft. And I know that Suhail, Charles, this was before you joined this group, I think, but Suhail, you were here and Buba was here, Joab as well, had put in some feedback. And I think we've all just gotten so busy. But Tian, I think we should pull that back up to kind of one of our front burners. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the document for all intents and purposes is done. There's been several rounds and sets of inputs from a range of folks. I think we got about 12 sets of inputs and edits. We've sent it to an editor to pull it together. And so I would perhaps suggest, in light of the upcoming activities, perhaps we could prioritize a call, perhaps sometime next week, to finalize it and to all intents and purposes, get it signed off. And then we can perhaps start seeking high-level endorsement. Yeah, especially what Suhail was saying really appealed to me in terms of getting, perhaps that could be a tool, you know, at the upcoming interaction with world leaders or sector leaders to publicly endorse that African position statement, because I do think it captures a lot of really important ones, you know, from manufacturing to equity to the historical positioning of public health, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah.
Okay, that's great. And we'll also, I'm hoping that Mohga can still join us, but she had some, you know, she had some thoughts because this idea of targeting African leaders also, I believe, Charles, please correct me if I'm wrong, if this came up in the policy group as well, because Mohga is actually the one that brought it up and said, I would like to attend the Africa meeting because I have some ideas. I sit on all these various groups, and I told her that we had also spoken about it. But I think that if we could really push that forward in the build up to any kind of week of action or any activities that are taking place, and especially with your outreach to Ngozi, Charles, has the targeting of African leaders been brought up in the policy group at all?
I think it came up, I wasn't at the last one, but I think it came up sort of as an offshoot from the discussions around the Biden summit at UNGA. Sort of, I think there was a little bit of frustration around nothing's materializing from sort of the global North actors. So how can we push a little bit further and from a different angle? And I think that's how it came up, to focus specifically on the African leaders. So yeah.
Okay, great. All right, thank you. So while we're all here, I just want to show us the calendar, the PVA calendar, and I do always worry that they are missing important events. So I'm just going to share here. Can you all see the calendar?
Yes.
Okay. So here, October 1st, International Day of Older Persons. Help Age is, I guess, a member of the People's Vaccine Alliance, trying to get stories from older people. And this was a day that was not on my radar at all. October 2nd is the one-year anniversary of the TRIPS waiver application. I know that Global Justice Now is organizing some activities, kind of like a very somber activity, protesting in the UK. Does anybody else have anything else happening around this one-year anniversary of the TRIPS waiver? No. Okay. All right. October 4th, I don't know if everybody has seen my email, but I would just encourage you, if you fit any of the, have people seen my email with the open letter to the Nobel Prize committees asking them to reconsider the nomination of the two CEOs of BioNTech?
Yep.
Okay. So
Maaza, sorry, just before you go on, just so we don't forget, would it be progressive, or would it be necessary if the People's Vaccine Alliance, the Africa face, can plan, maybe if it's not a picket or anything, maybe a webinar discussing the TRIPS waiver, and especially on October, is it on 2nd or 1st? I know that's a weekend, so probably on Monday, maybe on October 3rd, just discussing the specifics, and just as we had spoken about earlier, just education on what the TRIPS waiver is and what it means for Africans and the communities living on the margins, and what a TRIPS waiver would mean.
I mean, I think my concern is that organizing, and Marlies, you probably know this better than the rest of us, but organizing, you know, kind of a continental webinar at such short notice is a bit hard. I mean, do you think, Suhail, that if PV Kenya took the lead on this, that you could pull something together at such short notice before next week, before the end of next week?
I would have, let me speak to the team today evening, because we do have a call at 5 p.m. Let me just bring it up with them and see if we can bring it up, and then I can put it back to you guys. And then, because I think getting speakers wouldn't be too hard. Over here, we already have 7 tentative speakers. So, so that shouldn't be too difficult.
Okay, I see that Tian has volunteered themselves. That's great, Tian. So glad.
Well, that's very generous of you, Maaza. Not quite volunteered. I was just backing Suhail's idea. A second option we also could consider that might be easier to put together, well, and easy is relative considering everyone's lives. But I'm just thinking, you know, a presser, you know, we can get a presser together really quickly, you know, not more than 30 minutes, key players, just sharing really strong statements on how absolutely absurd this current situation is, and what does it mean politically, you know, in terms of the political mileage of the leadership of South Africa and India, you know, how are they feeling? What's going on in their heads? You know, so can we get someone from the mission perhaps, but just someone to speak to how damaging this is politically, or perhaps it's not, perhaps it's a great thing, you know, that India and South Africa are still, you know, the one standing. But yes, so I'm just throwing a press out there as another option.
Okay, thank you. Welcome back, Mohga. We are just going through the PVA calendar of upcoming key dates, and we talked about October 2nd being the one-year anniversary of the TRIPS waiver application by India and South Africa. And Suhail was very optimistically saying that maybe we could have an impromptu or half impromptu webinar next week just to try and break down and explain what the TRIPS waiver is, especially for the African audience where there are still so many questions. And Tian was suggesting maybe rather than a webinar, we do a presser. So that's where we are with that. So Suhail, please circle back to us once you discuss with your group. And I wonder, Marlies, I mean, I know that first webinar, obviously it's not, we'll miss that October 1st week, but some of the focus is on the TRIPS waiver, right? So for that discussion with FIFA, Rahman, and others. Yeah, and that is October 14th, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know what, Suhail, I know that there is something about, you know, the date itself and targeting that, but just to keep in mind that October 14th, there is this webinar with People's Health Movement, Health Justice Initiative, and African Alliance. So just something to keep in mind of, you know, it's kind of like the TRIPS waiver month as well, you know, the anniversary. So just something to keep in mind. October 4th is the Nobel Prize nominee. I don't know if this is actually the winner announcements or the nominee announcements, but I just want to encourage you all by the end of the day tomorrow, if you have not signed that letter, to please consider signing it. Marlise, I did give your feedback about changing that. So the letter right now says, I am a COVID-19 survivor, I have lost a loved one to COVID, or I am a healthcare worker, and I'm signing this letter to, put forth my recommendation to the Nobel Prize Committee that the CEOs of Pfizer-BioNTech not be nominated for a Nobel Prize. I put forward your suggestion, Marlise, that we add health activists, but the group that wrote the letter, the People's Vaccine Alliance, kind of pushed back a little bit that they want to try and make it as personal as possible. So if you are in one of those three categories of you've lost a loved one, you're a COVID-19 survivor, or you are a healthcare worker, please, or if there are people in your life that you could forward the letter to that would consider signing it, I think would be great to have as many signatories from Africa as possible. Please sign it. If you haven't received it, let me know. I'm actually going to send it around again today because we need it by the end of the day tomorrow, because we have to submit this by the 30th. There's also a request to have a couple of short videos from people basically saying that same thing, but to video. So if you know anyone who would be motivated to do a short, 2-minute video, please let me know. That would be sent around on social media. So these are just the other dates that are coming up. There's an event here with Winnie Byanyima. Mohga, I don't know if you know, I don't even know what event this is actually, on October 4th or 8th. I'm not sure what this event is. Then there's the World Trade Organization General Council meeting on the 13th and 14th. Here I can see that Global Justice Now is organizing a European Day of Shame about opposing the waiver. World Bank annual meetings coming up in mid-October. The Joint Health and Finance Ministers meeting coming up at the end of October. The G20 at the end of October. The COP, as you mentioned, Suhail, still taking place amazingly in Scotland. Then this Baku forum in Azerbaijan that apparently has a lot of leaders from around the world attending. November 6th, the 1-year anniversary of the Ensemble trial launch in South Africa. Then here we have the special session of the World Health Assembly at the end of November, I guess leading up to World AIDS Day. So these are all the various activities that are listed. Obviously, World AIDS Day itself, the Nobel Prize Award ceremony, which if the BioNTech CEOs do receive an award, I think we'll have to think about something to do around there. Here I see that it says PVA Alternative Prize Award, and then the World Trade Organization General Council. I will add December 8th to this calendar. As we've said, December 8th is the 1-year anniversary of that first Pfizer vaccine. So this is just a very quick run through. I will share these dates along with the report, and please let me know if there's anything that you think is missing that should be added, especially Africa focused, things related to SADC or the East African community, etc. Please add. I know we only have 10 minutes remaining, so I want to give Mohga some time. But basically, Mohga, just so you know, Suhail did float the idea of maybe developing an African week of action to kind of match these other days and weeks of action that the People's Vaccine Alliance has organized. And there was quite a bit of enthusiasm in the group around that. And we were brainstorming on when would be a good time to hold that, in November, in December, as a lead up to this December 8th anniversary of the first Pfizer vaccine. We also talked about, Suhail's outreach to Ngozi's office and maybe getting her to provide some kind of letter of support. There has been some talk around an open letter to African leaders, and that's something that we wanted to get your thoughts on. Like, if we had an open letter, what would make it kind of most valuable to African leaders, kind of trying to hold them to account. There was one other issue that we had discussed, guys, that I've forgotten. There was an open letter. Oh, there's our own kind of African PVA Africa manifesto that we have been working on and has gone through several rounds of edits. And we were just thinking that we probably need to update it, including the points in the letter, Mohga, that you had led the development on, those 5 points, in addition to the TRIPS waiver, these other issues that the PVA is asking for. But yeah, just any thoughts from you on how we could make, people want to pivot a little bit of attention to targeting African leaders and trying to hold them more accountable in this issue of vaccine access and equity. So over to you, Mohga.
Okay, thank you, and sorry for being late. I actually had to stop the other meeting and come here. Anyway, so yeah, these are all good ideas that you're talking about. So one thing that I believe in, if you want to have an influence on anybody or any organization, you have to be consistent and have a long-term plan. So the one-off letter is not going to do anything on its own. Whoever the person writing it, and for however it reaches, it has to be consistent, one letter, then one something else, and something else, something else. So all the actions have to be going in one direction to reach that aim that we all want, which is like vaccinating Africa. So yes, a letter to the Africans, the African leaders, for example, then what? So we can write a wonderful letter asking very specific things, and I think we should. But also, what do we do after that? What do we ask them immediately? Because some of the things that we're going to ask them, like for example, invest in health system so you can deliver the vaccine. Well, they're not going to invest tomorrow. They're going to start, hopefully, invest tomorrow. So we can have the objectives or the actions that they need, but then one or two things that we know we need immediately, and then next what? So I think this calendar that you have is great, but we need the African calendar, which is adding what you said at the end, the things that are relevant to Africa. So it doesn't include if there's the ministers of health, they meet, I don't know if they were going to meet before the WHO, they normally do, I don't know if they would. If there's Afro meeting, the WHO Africa, if there is the Africa Union events, that would be really useful, and who will attend, sometimes one or two heads of state, sometimes just the head of the Africa Union, sometimes not. Do we have a particular strategy for, I think we should have a particular strategy for the Africa Union. Tian and myself and maybe some others are part of some discussions on the Africa Union, Africa CDC about manufacturing, about vaccination. Okay, how do we expand, or how do we use this position that we have? It's not a position. How do you use it? Like we are insiders on these 2 or 3 meetings. How do we use that to make a difference, to make a change, instead of doing it individually? Like I talk about this, you talk about that, but then how do we do that consistently? So I think there's some ideas. I know I'm not giving concrete things, but there's some ideas that we need to discuss. So let's start by finding out the events that our African leaders, African ministers are involved in, and the events for the African Union. One important thing is that this news about Dr. Kingasong is leaving, it seems, and going to PEPFAR. I don't know if it's been finalized or not, but it looks like it. So there will be somebody else. So we need to, once we know, we sniff and hear, once we know who's that somebody, we should hold the meeting with him or her to basically, as a part of their induction, they will meet with everybody important, but they should meet with civil society. We should also have meetings as African civil society with the Africa CDC to look about their plans, actually, let's have a meeting with Dr. Kingasong before he leaves, and then just ask him about like what recommendation does he have of the way forward. How does he see the role of civil society? And we tell him things, because he's also going to have a very important position in PEPFAR that will affect us in Africa, not just on COVID, but on HIV. So that's also important for us. So anyway, so I suggest that's a priority because the guy is leaving. Hopefully we'll meet with him and maybe some people in his office like Nikesh or some other people. That would be also useful. So I think the meeting with the African leaders is a priority, getting the dates, and then we plan around these dates what we should do is a priority. Then there's the information kind of / education that we want people to know about the TRIPS waiver, but we want people also to know about why and how Africa can produce medicines and vaccines, but also other things as well. So this thing that we're involved in that. And then with African leaders, with CDC, with also educating civil society, we want to know about the delivery of the vaccines, because now COVAX is saying, oh, there's no problem about the supply. There's loads of doses around, but the countries are not ready. This is partially true to some extent, but mainly not true. But some actually, if you look at how the African countries are delivering the vaccine, some are doing really well, some are okay, and some are really bad. So it's about learning and how we do, what's our role. So technically, WHO and I don't know who else is helping them. Technically, we're not the technical people, but what do we do to ensure that they expand their delivery? Because I don't think governments are pulling their weight, to be honest. Some are, some aren't. So what do we do about that? So that would be my other thing.
Okay.
Then, yeah.
Thank you so much, Mohga. I know you get pulled in lots of directions, but I think you've already given us some good key points, which I will write up. And I think the main thing that I've heard is that a one-off is not going to help us. We have to kind of list our potential targets, whether they're people or events, and have kind of consistent outreach and be clear on what our multiple messages are. So it's not just one thing, it's several things, and kind of trying to have key people at key events. Mm-hmm.
The one thing that I forgot, that we're leaving pharmaceutical companies scot-free, and they are really, really bad. I mean, particularly, I was just saying to somebody earlier, we have to differentiate. AstraZeneca, thanks to Oxford University, they made a commitment, and we're relying on AstraZeneca from COVAX so far until the Biden thing start coming. But Pfizer has been incredibly bad, Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, and we really need to target them. So far, they're not feeling the pressure at all, I think. So as Africans, we need to send them messages. It's not just people from the north who scream, we should scream as well. And my very last point, I'm really happy to work with you all. So please just include me when you want. I'm not going to push myself, but I'd love to work with you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mohga. So since we had so little time this time, what I will suggest is maybe, if you don't mind, I know that Suhail, given the fact that your group is kind of pushing a lot of activities, maybe by November, if we could invite you to come back, Mohga, next time, if that's okay. And then we'll have listed out, you know, the events that are coming and the different strategies. Hopefully we'll have Tian will turn around the manifesto by then as well. So if nobody has objections, we can invite you to come back for part of the meeting next time, Mohga, so we can push the Africa activities forward. And I will write up the notes from today and send them out. But I know that we're out of time. So does anybody, and Joab, I'm sorry you've joined us right at the end, but I will make sure that you get everything that we talked about. But does anybody have any final burning comments, questions before we sign off? I know that everybody has other meetings to attend at this hour. No. Okay. So what I would also ask is please send me, I can see Robert, you've been putting some dates in the chat, Tian as well. If there are events that we've missed, please send us those dates, whether they're East African, Southern African, etc. Yes, oh, great. Robert is sending us the social media analytics tool, and hopefully we'll have time to talk about that next month as well. But thank you so much, everyone. Mohga, thank you for squeezing us in, and we'll invite you to come back next time. You're a fellow African.
Me, I'm African. So
yes,
I'm a stakeholder here.
Yes, yes, you are. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Enjoy, have a good rest of your day, and we'll chat soon.
Thank you.
Thanks all. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.